it looks like Fred, after going through the island of Hispaniola over around about 24 hours ago, has emerged north of Cuba. It looked like it was going to be gone, but I gotta say, it's trying to get its groove back, and that's kind of the theme of this evening's update. This is being recorded around 10:20 Eastern Time on Thursday, the 12th of August, 2021. So this is the update on the storm. Going to bring that to you now. This is an advisory as of the 8 p.m. National Hurricane Center had this moving west northwest at 7 and slow down quite a bit compared to earlier forward speed. Max sustained wind still at 35 miles an hour. Still has a way to go after getting torn up in Haiti and Dominican Republic, the mountainous terrain over there. And it's expected to continue its west northwest and northwesterly trek around a ridge of high pressure, which is back out here, steering this thing thanks to its clockwise flow. And it's going to wind up finding a weakness in there and turn off towards the northwest over time. Now, the Big Bend, South Georgia, is still under the cone of uncertainty with the sliver of west central Florida all the way down to southwest Florida. Now, those yellow lines you see there is a tropical storm watches. It means tropical storm conditions are possible over the next 48 hours. So those in the people who are in tropical storm watches need to be prepared to see said conditions within the next 48 hours potentially. This could be upgraded the warnings. We'll see what happens over the next 12 to 24 hours. But that's the projected path it's expected to take. Looking more and more likely, the Big Bend or even South Georgia will see some impacts from this. And I'll get over that a little bit later on. But here is the courtesy of NOAA. This is the satellite imagery from earlier today. Let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger here. The jitteriness, this is from NOAA. You'll see here, right where my cursor is earlier, pretty low center circulation still, but the hurricane hunters and NOAA, the National Hurricane Center, were saying that it barely, and I mean barely, had a close center of circulation. It was almost an open wave, which technically wouldn't be a tropical cyclone for that matter, or a tropical depression. But it's still holding tight, at least, and with around sundown, starting to see some convection blowing up mostly on the eastern side of the storm. Now it's still encountering wind shear as of this recording. You see those cloud tops kind of blowing off on top there, near the southern Bahamas from earlier today? Yeah, that's the wind shear. Here's what it looks like on the infrared satellite imagery with visible on top. Of course, it goes at nighttime. Still some colder cloud tops trying to show up. So in other words, convection is trying to develop. The question is, can those central pressures continue to fall? Can those thunderstorms continue to develop? And that's something we have to check out in the next several hours. Now, as we look at the water vapor imagery, you can see the spin right here, right where my cursor is. That is showing upper level low pressure system, which is bringing in those clouds blowing up there, some of that wind shear from the south and the west across the area, across the Gulf and parts of the Caribbean, which is blowing off or trying to blow off the cloud tops. Now, with this low barely moving over the last several days, who knows if it has a lot of its luster left. So wind shear might relax just enough for it to get some intensity back over the area. Now, this radar imagery you see here is looking a lot more populated than it did earlier today. Not much over the northeastern coast of Cuba. Now we're seeing a lot more convection, a lot more showers and thunderstorms developing. Hurricane hunters were flying out into the storm, or still flying out into the storm as this recording. Some of the latest imagery show that, yeah, this is, by the way, courtesy of Tropical Tidbits from Dr. Levi Cowan. They're still having fixes here. That's our dog, by the way. Still having fixes here plotted. 1013, 1020 millibar, not a really strong system. Pressures aren't really falling right now. So again, it has a way to go to really get itself back together. All right, what you see here is a GFS 850 millibar map. In other words, that's about 0.6 of a mile above sea level, roughly. And that is basically showing airflow where it's not being impacted by friction. It's above the boundary layer, so to speak. But nevertheless, it kind of gives you a sense, okay, there's some spin in the lower levels of the atmosphere. And that's what this model's picking up. And right here where I'm kind of spinning the cursor, that's kind of where we're seeing the model, at least thinking where that storm is at. GFS is kind of not really going ho with this. but tries to bring something back as we get into Saturday into Sunday. Now, this is as of 2 p.m. Eastern Time Sunday, and the GFS model has it basically going more northwestward, potentially over the western panhandle for a landfall. This is just one run, keep that in mind. And to give you perspective, yeah, the cone of error extends from basically Mobile area all the way to, let's say, the I-75 corridor and Florida and parts of South Georgia. So that scenario here you see is not really out of the question. This is what the GFS thinks. Winds just above the surface now. They're not really getting really high with the winds here. Barely showing, tropical storm force in the offshore waters. Again, I think a lot of the wind action is going to be along the coast and the offshore waters, the way things are looking, unless this thing really, really amps up, which I'm not really expecting to, given its current state and the environment that it's going to be in over the next couple of days. Next, this is the this is a Euro. This is courtesy of Pivotal Weather, and you see it's handling a little bit differently. Vorticity is a bit more tight than the low levels of the atmosphere, and also has this thing coming in sometime around Sunday evening, give or take a few hours, and then advancing pretty quickly. Now, the GFS has been kind of slowing the system down, and nevertheless, Tuesday, system clears out, and of course, Fred deteriorates as it moves on inland, and this is what it looks like. Let me go back a little bit here. So, Euro doesn't really crank out a whole lot with this, but brings it 1019, 1008 millibar low as we get to Sunday afternoon, evening, potentially landfall again along the coastline. This model's thinking Franklin County. But nevertheless, look at these winds here. You're still below tropical storm force, and again, it looks like a lot of it's going to be on the coastline. So again, reiterating, not a big wind concern, at least the way things stand right now. Of course, we'll have to keep an eye on things over the next 24 to 48 hours. But this is something that I have pretty good confidence in at this point. You see the yellows? Those are precipitable water or atmospheric moisture levels from the surface all the way up. You tally it all up. You put it in a bucket gauge of some sorts. That's all the moisture you have out of it, and there's a lot of it coming in. That's why reasons why bigger rain chances coming into place. We get the Saturday and the Sunday across the Florida Peninsula, extending northward throughout the rest of Saturday, mostly into Sunday. Now the Big Bend, South Georgia, we'll see a lot of this moisture moving on in as we get to Sunday morning, as the storm gets close to our neck of the woods. So regardless of the path, there's going to be a lot of moisture sitting around as we get to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, even to keep those rain chances pretty high, at least across the Big Bend, South Georgia, much of the Florida Panhandle. Rainfall totals. This is a GEFS, basically ensemble average, an average of all the members. So as we get to Saturday nights, South Florida will be seeing plenty of rain already. This is a running total, by the way, between the model run to the time you see on your screen. That's 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saturday, excuse me, bringing in some heavy rain. We'll see that as we go into Friday into Saturday. So people in South Florida, definitely keep an eye out for that. But rain chances will definitely rain totals will start to increase as we get to Tuesday. By the time we get to Tuesday evening, we could see maybe roughly around an inch, maybe more than that. Once you get to the Big Bend, on the coastal areas, see about 1 to 2 inches, potentially even more than that. I can't rule that out. But South Florida, 3, 4, I would say maybe even more than that in some locations based on this model run. And it's not too far off from what the Weather Prediction Center is calling for. This is their forecast, 1 to 5 day forecast valid through Tuesday evening. Miami-Dade could see about 6 to 10 inches. Isolated totals could be a lot higher. So I think more of a flooding threat for southeastern Florida or South Florida in general, maybe in the coastal areas near Tampa Bay, west central Florida. And once you get to Tallahassee, the Big Bend, South Georgia, you start to see 2 to 4 inches. I think closer to the coastline, places like Steinhatchee River don't need to see any more rainfall. You've seen plenty. You don't need any more, but there's a potential for more. 4 to 6 inches, at least on this, potentially higher amounts with some heavier rain heavier rain bands that may move in. In terms of specific impacts for the area, for Big Bend and South Georgia, I'm mostly focusing on, this is where I cover. I think the threats, specific threats in terms of surge, in terms of wind, it's not looking like a big wind or big surge events. Although if the storm continues to ramp up a little bit more, we could see that potential. the potential for tropical storm force winds across the Tallahassee, Thomasville, Valdosta television viewing market. It's about I'd say 20 to about 10 to 20%. Along the coastal areas, with a higher 20 to 30%. And once you get towards 50 knot wind speed probabilities, right now not looking very high at all. And hurricanes, we're not expecting this to become a hurricane. I'd be shocked if it did hit to that level. So right there, wind odds are looking low. But with the rainfall, I think that's right now going to be the biggest potential, not just across the Florida Peninsula, but also into the Big Bend and into South Georgia. So those over Big Bend, South Georgia should probably keep in mind, hey, you may have a rainy weekend, especially as we get into later Saturday through Sunday and the beginning of the next work week. So that's something to keep in mind as we go to the next several days. So again, bigger rainfall threat. Still specifics in terms of wind and maybe even the potential for coastal flooding. We'll have to wait and see how this pans out. Any deviation left or right on the track can change impacts for one's specific location. So keep checking back. Make sure you're following reputable sources online or on local, or of course, local television stations. National Weather Service office are definitely good sources. Of course, you can follow me as well, whereas content where I work for as well. You can follow me at Charles Root WCTV on Twitter. So this is an update as of Thursday night. So hopefully I maybe put out one more update for the weekend. So stay tuned, stay safe, everyone. Have a good one.